please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
As big screaming headlines of law enforcing agencies seizing properties of economic offenders like Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya hit us more frequently, on Urban Reality today we deep dive into the attempts of the Finance Ministry to amend laws and manage plus monetize these seized assets by handing them over to NBCC, which is a public sector company engaged in construction, project management and real estate. Hello and welcome, I'm Manisha Natarajan, and today on the show we deep dive into the proposed plan to find out if it has any legs to stand on or is it still a half-baked idea. Joining me are CNBC Tv18's Tim C. Jaipuria, who broke the story on the channel. We also have with us Sumant Batra, insolvency lawyer, and with us joining from Mumbai, Shashank Jain, partner and leader, Real Estate Deals, PwC India. We'll also get a reaction from Mr. Anup Kumar Mittal, Chairman and MD of NBCC Limited, on how he's viewing these assets which are going to come into the NBCC portfolio. Timsy, let me begin with you. How serious is the government of executing this plan, and have they really well thought this through?
Yes, as you rightly mentioned, they've well thought through this idea. There were a series of meetings between the Finance Secretary, who is also Revenue Secretary, with all the chiefs of these enforcement agencies, be it the Income Tax Department, be it the CBI or the Enforcement Directorate. And there were several questions being posed to the chiefs of these investigative agencies that how much worth of assets do they have, how much worth of them are still stuck in litigation, and how much worth of assets are lying idle and these agencies are spending just to maintain these assets. So okay, there's a huge sum involved in this. There are a lot of prime properties which are lying idle, and government is spending to maintain these properties.
So how soon do you think this could go through, Timsy? What are your sources telling you? Is it something which is just being discussed and will take about a month, 2 months, or it could be faster?
Well, how soon this could be is something that there needs to be changes in the laws. When I told you that there were a series of meetings, the IT department has backed out from it, saying that they already have it inbuilt in their law and they cannot hand over their properties to NBCC or any other agency. They already monetize. But when it comes to CBI and ED and the police, they don't have such provisions in the law, be it the PMLA or the CRPC. So government needs to amend these laws, try and bring an inbuilt provision where they can hand over the properties which have been seized fully and are not stuck under litigation, so that the owner can come into action anytime. So these properties need to be handed over to NBCC only after the changes in the laws are made. Laws can be amended as soon as the next session of the parliament, because this session we know is a little bit slow. Yeah, it's a watered down session. So we need to wait and watch for the next session is as soon as we can see the amendments in the law. And once the amendments in the laws are made, it will come into action with immediate effect.
With immediate effect. All right. Let me also get in Mr. Anup Mittal of NBCC. Mr. Mittal, first question to you. Are you looking forward to managing and earning revenue from these attached properties that the Finance Ministry is proposing?
You see, of course, we have not received any formal order from government about this project or this work, but several discussions have taken place in last couple of months to manage these properties, how NBCC can take these properties, what kind of modalities will be there, how these properties can be put on use to earn the money also, and a lot of other things, security and strategic things. A lot of things we have discussed, but formal order we have not received yet.
All right. My question to you is, what are the challenges that you foresee? If I look at your portfolio so far, sir, lots of experience and of course very well managed business. But in terms of managing commercial rental assets, NBCC does not have that stream built in yet.
You see, I would like to tell you and the viewers also that we have two verticals. One is subsidiary company, NBCC Services Limited. This company is managing all our assets constructed by NBCC for different clients, as well as buildings owned by NBCC. So this company maintains these properties, take care of all other issues related to statutory bodies, security, etc. So this is basically for managing the property as far as maintenance and operation is concerned. We have separate vertical real estate, which is responsible for selling the property, and some of the properties we have leased out. So this company, this vertical real estate vertical, is in existence since last 25 years. And all our redevelopment projects, wherever we are selling the properties and leasing out the properties, like Kirvai Nagar property, we have leased out to different departments, is being managed by this.
All right. Any legal tangles that you need to be careful of, or the finance ministry needs to be careful of before they make the amendments to the various laws, sir?
No, I'm not aware of all these things because we are not into this. This is to be looked after by government only. What are the law provisions and how they confiscate or seize these properties, that we have not gone into.
All right, Mr. Mittal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, you heard Mr. Anup Mittal. Sumant Batra, I mean, it seems like a very good idea. Numbers say 16,000 crore worth of real estate is already lying with ED. There's another 1,000 crore plus. There are more properties which are likely to get attached. But is it that simple to just, you know, get them monetized through NBCC?
Well, if the whole idea is a noble one and the end objective is to put all these assets which are lying locked in various litigations or otherwise to a more productive use, nobody can really have a quarrel with that proposition. And either with the courts, we, reluctant to sort of give any reliefs against any such steps that are taken. Mm-hmm. But I think the challenge is somewhere else. I mean, as long as it remains the issue who would manage with these assets is fine. The real problem arises who would have the beneficial interest in any earnings that are outcome of such management, because
who will get them? The government will keep them, or the lenders will keep them? That's a very important question. That's
right. I mean, I think the challenge is that in all these assets, invariably, even if there's no direct mortgage or hypothecation in favor of lenders, there would be a floating charge, because that's how the lenders work. That even if those assets are not specifically mortgaged or charged, they have a floating charge by virtue of the loan documentations and security documentation. So they would obviously claim interest in these assets, or at least in the revenue that is generated out of it. So to that extent, what NBCC may just benefit is a management fee out of that, but eventually they'll have to pass on. So there will be what we may call as a pass-through clause, which means that any income that is generated out of these assets being put to lease or other instruments, any money generated will have to be a pass-through to the lenders who have a floating charge on that to recover the money out of this.
All right, so lenders should be happy if that happens. Shashank Jain, what's your own view? Looks easy enough on papers, and I'm sure all of these loopholes can be covered. But do you see any kind of unforeseen roadblocks which the government and the finance ministry should be wary of?
I think, as the other panelists have said, the step is welcome, the thought is noble. Really what needs to be seen is how is this implemented, and we'll have to approach each case or a set of case with a different sort of roadmap, because if it's a seizure of a property by, let's say, an income tax department, then it needs to be dealt differently versus if it's seized by any of the agencies, enforcement directors, or under the new fugitive bill that's been sort of passed, that needs to be dealt differently. If it is under the Insolvency Act, where there is a separate provision under the IBC, that needs to be dealt separately. So concept is welcome. I think the implementation needs to be really thought through about this. Otherwise, we could be staring at a whole lot of litigations coming in around this particular aspect itself.
You talk about litigation, and Sumant Batra, there are leaders in the opposition who are already feeling that the bill, if enacted, has the potential to be misused. It provides for the presumption of guilty until proven innocent for an accused, and which is against fundamental rights. So how do you make this litigation proof? Can you make it litigation proof?
Well, yes, I mean, obviously, if you're acquiring somebody else's asset, or even if it is about just taking possession and depriving somebody of the possession, even though it is through an instrument of law, people have right to challenge, they can go to court. So that is something which you cannot prevent. The issue is that how does prejudice anybody that that asset is now being managed for more productive use, as long as the benefit of that is being passed on to whosoever is legitimately entitled to. Whether it is the lender that gets the money, ultimately it will be set off against the dues that are payable by the borrower. And the borrower is obviously deprived of the responsibility of then having to look after the asset. So therefore, you can't you have a conflict with this proposition. I think it's a good idea, but as the other panelists said, that it's all about how the government implements it, and whether NBCC would be just happy managing it, or would they want something more than that?
They do that.
Yeah.
NBCC actually does do project management and just earns management fee. They have construction and, of course, real estate as a separate business altogether. My question to you, Timsi, is that there's also now a fugitive economic offenders bill where authorities are being given power to impound assets of those who have fled the country after committing an economic offense. So here we are talking about Money Laundering Act, bringing changes in that, also the Fugitive Economic Act. So many laws, many agencies involved in it. A lot of thought has to go through it. Is that what you're hearing? That look, they're going to flesh it out in a way that monies can be recovered for the borrowers?
Yes, as you rightly mentioned, there are a lot of laws where these properties do get attached, where offenders are involved, be it the newly constituted fugitive offenders bill, where there is an authority. The bill gives a charge to an authority. Authority will be created who will be again impounding assets of fugitive offenders. Similarly, ED also has
in fact, ED brought this about,
yes.
Right? They asked for this meeting because it's saying we have so many assets which are lying
exactly unused. They have about 16,000 crore worth of assets, which not just includes real estate, but also cars, paintings, jewelry, etc., which can be let out on rental basis, and they could be revenue which will be generated. And as far as the government is concerned and the revenues are concerned, let me bring down that point here itself. The revenue will go to the Central Fund of India, which then gives funds to all these agencies to work. And similarly, some fees will go to NBCC.
What
As
about
you
the
said,
borrowers then?
Borrowers will definitely get their right. Their right will be inbuilt. There are a lot of properties where borrowers are also not involved, let me tell you. It's not always that a borrower is involved. So whenever there's a borrower involved, the first charge goes to the borrower, definitely, because these are banks and government is very sure that they need to protect the rights of these banks and these lenders. Apart from that, where government has already taken charge of those properties, where these properties are no longer in the litigation and government has got the first charge. In those cases, be it hotel properties, be it mansions, etc., government will give the charge to NBCC to come up with the best solution. Take a view from the committee itself, from Finance Secretary to be precise, also will be part of this committee, who will then allow NBCC to go ahead and take a call.
Okay.
So when it comes to these various bills which are involved, where a lot of authorities are involved who impound these properties, the laws of all these authorities, of all these agencies, will be amended accordingly to give them power to hand over these properties to
So then my
NBCC.
question...
Can I make a 30-second
Yes, go
comment?
ahead.
Which is that, another capacity that the NBCC would need is litigation management, because all these would involve very, very rigorous litigations and contentious litigation. So besides, of course, the capacity to manage these assets, they would also need the capacity to manage high-profile, complex litigations at all levels.
I'm looking at it, Shashank, and saying, look, it can't be that easy as it looks. It's a great idea. And also, why would NBCC want to get into something like this? I mean, is it really worth the kind of fee that they will earn? Is it worth their time and while?
So you've raised a valid point, Manisha. There are two aspects to it when you look at the real estate which gets seized under any process. So one is maintenance of that property, which seems to be an overwhelming theme at the moment, at least the way government is looking at it. But to my mind, that's a temporary solution. You maintaining it so as to make sure that the value is preserved. You get some returns out of that. But if a property has been seized, rest assured, a rental income or a recurring income is not going to resolve help recover the dues. Ultimately, it's the disposal of the asset which will help government or any other authority recover it. So NBFCs, to their core of construction, development, EPC player, would need to think through and come up with a solution where, while maintenance could be a short-term measure that they look at, but ultimately they'll have to look at either a redevelopment or a sale process, etc. Selling these assets, because that's where the meaning, but ultimately they'll have to look at either a redevelopment or a sale process, etc. Selling these assets, because that's where the meaningful recovery of the dues will happen. Otherwise, you're looking at a situation where, you know, various government departments like railways or BSNL and MTNLs are sitting on, you know, lakhs and lakhs worth of land parcels all over the country, but we haven't really been able to monetize them in a very meaningful way.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for being with me. And of course, Tim C. Jaipuria, pleasure to have you with me. Well, huge surge in number of seized assets with the Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill. This number will go up. So we need to find a viable solution, but the government also has to make sure it's a well thought out plan and be prepared for a lot of litigation. Another burning topic of the week, the Insolvency Committee has recommended that home buyers be treated as financial creditors in insolvency proceedings. The 14-member Insolvency Law Committee has recommended that home buyers be treated as financial creditors under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code due to the unique nature of financial or financing in real estate projects. Well, it has pointed out that the non-inclusion of home buyers deprives them of A, the right to initiate insolvency process, B, the right to be on the committee of creditors, and C, the guarantee of receiving at least the liquidation value under the resolution plan. But will this change help stuck home buyers? Joining me to answer this question are Sumant Batra, insolvency lawyer, and also Abhishek Dubey, corporate lawyer and JP home buyer. Sumant, I think the very first question is, I mean, how much is this going to help the home buyers? Really, because what they've got is now a suggestion to be equivalent to financial creditors, still not the status of a secured creditor.
Well, it helps in two ways, certainly, as speaking from the home buyer's point of view. One, that they would now get the right to file an insolvency, which otherwise under the existing law they don't have, and that's been held by the NCLT, that even though they may be a creditor in that sense, but they do not qualify to be an operational creditor or a financial creditor, therefore they can't file an insolvency. The second, of course, would be that they would be able to participate in the insolvency resolution process, because as a financial creditor, they would be a member of the committee of the creditors, and therefore they would be very, very
As of now,
engaged.
they just come as an observer, isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
Nothing, not even as an observer.
I mean, at least the report doesn't say that they would be as an observer, at least, unless I've sort of,
currently I say, as the GP proceeding
today
is
also
happening,
they don't have any right to participate in any manner whatsoever.
Not even
it
as
is
an
only
observer.
that in one case, the Honorable Supreme Court has appointed their representative, a lawyer, to attend the meetings of the COC to espouse the cause of the home buyers, but they don't have a vote. Right? So to that extent, that participation is not very meaningful. At least it is in one case only, not across the board. So yes, they will get to become a member of the committee of creditors and participate in the entire resolution process, have a voice, have a vote, and obviously be able to sort of safeguard their own interests. So from their perspective, it's a win-win situation.
Okay, Abhishek, seems that the insolvency professional here is saying that it's a win-win situation. But on Twitter, home buyers simply don't seem to be celebrating this recommendation. What is the big worry still as an overhang?
See, what I believe is that I think being a financial creditor is a very good recommendation that the committee has given, because, you know, for me, being a secured creditor, would come only after once the resolution process has failed and the company goes into liquidation. However, being a financial creditor, you are actually, driving the insolvency resolution process where, you have a vote in the committee of creditors. Okay. So now so basically if you compare, for example, let's take the JP case, the debt of home buyers is around 20,000 crores. That was the money raised from home buyers. And if you basically compare it with the debt due to banks, it is 8,500 crores. So therefore, home buyers will, in the JP case itself, will have 2/3 of majority, and therefore they will be in the driver's seat. Though I understand that it won't be retrospective. So but JP case is not like, the law will not be retrospective. So, but in future, it will be a very good move for the home buyers, in the sense that they will be financial creditors. However, the banks are not going to like this, because so far they have been in the driving position in the earlier regime under SICA,
so banks
and
are
also
definitely
under the IBC code.
I think
so far.
Abhishek, you've raised a very important point. So much quick
Yes.
concluding remark on that. How are banks going to take this?
Well, 2 quick points. One, of course, banks. It's not about the banks. It's about the financing industry, because if you're going to make it home
And
buyers.
banks at least have land as a collateral. I mean, these home buyers have nothing. They've been financing
It's not
the
about
industry
that.
and they
It's,
have nothing.
if it takes away the ability of the banks to decide the resolution, and they have to take into account the home buyers' wishes sitting at the table, they would be very reluctant to fund real estate projects. So to me, and that's the implication.
That's a large ramification.
That's a macro level ramification. The micro level, ramification is that how would you conduct orderly meetings with huge amount of, the home buyers wanting to sit at the table themselves and not appointing representatives.
My God. All right. So that's an interesting take. What happens? I mean, are banks likely to going ahead be able to finance the real estate sector, which is already crunching? There's been a huge cash crunch in that industry. Abhishek Dubey and Sumant Batra, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Well, just placing home buyers as of now higher as compared to other unsecured creditors is unlikely to solve the problem of thousands of customers who've been left in a lurch. I think they need a little bit more from the government, RBI and NHB. For starters, a moratorium on their existing home loans that they've been demanding, or EMIs till flats are handed over. I'll see you again next week on Urban Reality. Goodbye.